Hello everyone, I'm Rich Lamont. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, welcome. Picked a great video to start. This is going to be a good video. So this is a fly that I've wanted to do for a while. This is Blacker's BALLYSHANNON. This fly is typically tied much smaller than I'm going to tie it, but obviously as I do with the norm, I am tying it larger for a frame. The hook that I'm using is a Lars Mahler. It's about between a 6.0 and 7.0 hook. I really like this style hook. It's nice and robust, and I really love the shape of the point. And the finish on these is fantastic. Just a beautiful hook. So I really can't wait to dress this fly on it. It's going to be something. So to start off, let's get our gut attached. And the thread that I'm using is Vivis 12.0 in black. So I've had my silk gut soaking for, I don't know, I'd say about an hour. This is some older 3-strand Japanese gut that it doesn't seem to unravel if it's soaked for a while, but it also seems to take a while to soak to really get to the pliable stage. So I think we're there now, though. So we're going to get this underneath here and then tie forward onto it. And as I tie forward, that's going to very slowly close that loop a bit without creasing it. Sometimes if you try to do it with your fingers, you can wind up creasing it. I think that's good. So I'll just work my way back. This fly does not have, it's not a floss body, it's a dubbed body. So I'm concerned for smooth underbody is not really necessary. And I'm just going to angle this a little bit, and it'll just make the transition to the hook a little bit easier and a little bit cleaner. It won't be a step, whereas if you just go right to the end of the gut, that can leave kind of a step. Again, it really doesn't matter all that much because of the dubbed body. But now on this fly, I do not have the, I don't have Blacker's book, so I don't have the list of his actual pattern or his illustrations, but you know, it's a somewhat popular pattern that is online. It's easily found. Others have tied it, and I did watch Ryan Houston's video on tying it. If you don't know Ryan Houston, check out his channel. He's got a great channel on it. I believe Davey McPhail also did the BALLYSHANNON. So both those guys have terrific channels, really terrific fly tyers, and really know what they're doing. Anyway, back to my point. The book that I do have, the Blacker Compendium, does not show a silver tip on the tag. So that initially was going to be my plan, but I really like the look of a tip, having that little bit of silver to start the fly off. And Ryan Houston also mentioned in his video that in the illustration you can see that, which I have yet to see, but I'm going to put silver there. And I'm going to use silver twist, which is Unifrench. If you guys want to get some, that's what you look for. I believe you can find that at feathersmc.com as well. So I'm going to run this back and tie it in back to about the barb valley. More. That's good. And I'm going to do, I think, 3 turns of the twist. And then we'll tie that off, and when we tie it off, we'll run it right back up the body alongside where you just tied in, and we'll bring that right back up to where that gut ends. And that'll help keep the floss tag nice and smooth. Now for the tag itself, we're going to start just shy of the hook point. I keep grabbing the underside of the vise right where the lower clamp is, the lower jaws are, and I keep loosening it. They're not very tight, and they don't need to be. So to loosen it is actually relatively simple. The tag for this is puce floss, puce colored. So this is JEC, and it is number 656 if you're interested, and I also got this at Feathers MC. I'll have a list in the description of places to get the materials. No. I'm going to tie this in, tying it in by the end, not doubling it over. Normally I would wear my gloves. I have silk gloves, and I do recommend them, especially if you're a construction worker or anyone that works with your hands on a regular basis and have rough hands. My hands haven't seen a construction site in quite some time, so they're a little on the smooth side. Just make sure that I wash them really good. And now when we get closer to the end, we're going to keep, oh boy, when we get closer to the end here, I'm going to keep going just a shade past the tie-in. And then we'll tie it off. There's no butt on this fly, but I do like to have that little bit extra, the floss, so that way I can back wrap over it, and that ends the floss rather nicely, gives it a nice smooth reveal, and you don't see any of the transition. And then you can burnish this just a tad. And the nice thing about Uni Twist, or the Uni French Silver Twist, is it does burnish out and flatten down just a bit. You don't have to be rough with it. Pardon me. Okay. Let's just try the hook point. Now for the tail. The tail is a golden pheasant topping, veiled by scarlet ibis. So I've chosen the topping already. With these, It's really nice to have a topping that's splayed out and has lots of fibers, and but typically that's not how these were tied, even though I'm not really tying this fly how it was typically tied. But it's better to get a nicer tail if you can actually use the whole feather and tie in down here by the root. So I've chosen this one, and I'm going to tie that one in here. Now I do want it to splay out a little, so I'm just going to use my thumbnail ever so slightly to break the back on it a little. And then right where the tie-in is going to be, I'd like it to bend down onto the floss just a little. So I'll kink that there and there. That'll give me a nice curved tail like I'd like. Somewhat flat, but a little bit of a curve to it. So we remove the little fluffy feather that's in there, and then trim everything up to that little crease. That looks good. I'm just going to wax my thread ever so slightly. Don't need a ton, just a little bit on there. Three gentle wraps. You don't have to wrap them tight. Oftentimes if you try wrapping really tight, like you want to hold it down, and that actually winds up causing you more problems with not just this, but with a lot of feathers. You really don't need to have to tie them in overly tight. There we are. And then we can tie the rest of this right in. And then the veiling is scarlet ibis. And a couple scarlet ibis feathers. Really a beautiful feather. And typical tail veilings, anywhere from half to 2/3 of the tail. And we only need, let's call it 5 fibers on each side. Okay, so I've got my 2 sets, left and right. And then we'll take those and tie those in right on top here. Again, just a very gentle, loose wrap. Let the weight of the bobbin pull it down. And then a second one, and then you can assess, see how you're positioned. That's better. See how part of it's on one side of the rachis, and part of it's on the other. And then you can tie the rest down. Alright, now the ribbing is a large silver oval tinsel. So for that I'm using Vivus large oval. And since we're not really concerned with underbody and lumps, we can tie this one in pretty much without stripping anything off of it. And again, that's going to be on the quartering away side at somewhere around the 530 position. Our hackle for this is yellow. And I'm using Schlappen for this because it's a large fly. I really want this to flow really nicely and have a really nice thick webby hackle. So I've got a couple feathers here that I thought would all work well. And I feel like this one here is going to be a pretty good one. The other thing I like about Schlappen hackle is that it has a really nice taper. It's usually a very even, it's a very even taper that is gradual, and it's not so sharp. It's not, you know, long and drawn out. It's usually a very nice taper that is easy to work with. So I'm going to use this. And we're going to go up into the tip quite a bit. And we're going to tie that in right here next to that silver oval tinsel. And now we'll finish tying in that tinsel and the hackle. The body on this is supposed to be like a golden olive mohair dubbing. I do not have a golden olive mohair, but I do have a golden olive seal's fur. So I'm going to be using that instead. It's going to be a little bit on the quote-unquote buggier side. It's going to be fuzzier than if it were mohair, but I think it's still going to look pretty nice. Downside is this won't be as quick to dub as mohair typically is. I did use a little bit of wax on here, but I don't think wax really doesn't seem to work better one way or another. So most of the time I just use a little bit of spit, look at my fingers till I get to that just tacky point, and that works just fine. And when you're spinning, when you're dubbing your thread with seal's fur, I always want to make sure you're going, well, with any dubbing really, but you always want to make sure you're going in the same direction. I always go counterclockwise. And then continue to spin it as I wrap it. Dubbing all over. That's the other downside to seal's fur, is it does tend to snow a little bit of it onto your desk. You wind up having a pile at the underneath the fly, and on any prepared materials that you may have down there. And if you're following along if you're tying while following along with this, make sure you leave yourself enough room at the front, because the head on this, there's a lot of material to tie in, and we've got the hackle that's got to go on last, the red throat hackle. Well, the hurl head is last, but okay. Now we'll bring up the tinsel. And as usual, doing 5 turns and then have the 5th one tie off underneath. We'll trim this a bit short, but not completely. And then we'll bring up the hackle. And the hackle, you just want to try to tuck that rackus in right underneath that, right on the back side of that tinsel. And then as you wrap, pull it all backwards. Just palmer that back. What you have is a nice webby flowing hackle. And then I'm going to do an extra turn at the back. And then just pluck away a little bit from the sides here. Create yourself a spot to tie in, or tie off. Now I just want to look at the length. Make sure that everything I've done up to this point is good. And anything that needs to get redone soon, because we're going to start adding all the larger stuff. Part of me feels that hackle's too long. Let me see what my throat hackle looks like. That'll be okay. I'm alright with that. So now we'll clip that. Alright, so the underwing for this is golden pheasant crests. So to choose those, I chose them from this head here. And you can see that natural flow that these have. They're not exactly splayed out completely, but they've got a nice curvature and a nice look to them. So the majority of the ones for this I've pulled from right in the middle here, right in here, and some of these little bit shorter ones. These have to be in increasing succession across the middle of the fly, so let's part these out of the way for the moment. And I've already gone through and picked them out, prepped them, and I did tie them in once, but I had to kind of go back and just redo them just a little. So I'm technically redoing this part of the video. Number one. And the second one. Make sure you flatten down all the rackuses on these, so that way they stack on each other easily. If you don't flatten them out, they're not going to stack all that great. And you can wind up having them slip off and... Oop, I won't go that far. It's really best to try to be able to tie these in by their base, right where they come out of the skin. They tie in better, they tie in easier. And there's not so much to trim away afterwards. Last one's a little long. We'll just shorten that by just a little. Yep, I'll have to trim that one. Okay, I like that. The wood duck I'm going to use is going to be the darker barred wood duck, I think. Yeah, I like that. And you want to have these tippets sticking out of the wood duck a bit. You should stick right out the back of that wood duck, just like that. Now, when your wood duck's curved like this, right? So you can take your thumb and just very gently, just like you do with the golden pheasant, with a tippet or crest, you can kind of just work your thumb along the stem a little bit, and that'll just help flatten it out just a little. And then I'm going to take the stem and just twist it ever so slightly. And that twisting it is going to help it lay better against the tippets, and it's going to help it tie in a little bit easier. So I'm just going to prep the other feather really quick, pull off the fluff. Get these matched up correctly. And then do the same thing with the other one. Just go ahead and work myself along this rackus here, and then twist it a little. And push those down a little bit for now, since that one top golden pheasant wants to kind of sit outside of this wood duck. That's not how it works. I think it's pulling that one wood duck. There. We'll keep them a little bit lower and we can pull them up when we're doing our adjustments later. Okay, now these wood duck stems, you might notice I'm tying them in on the sides, right here. Not necessarily not on top of the hook shank, but more laying across the side of the hook shank. That actually makes it easier to get them to lay flat against one another. Makes it easier to tie in and have them flat against the hook as well. Okay, so the next group of feathers, or feather pieces, is going to be white-tipped turkey to start. So I've got a couple of sprigs here. These are just slips of white-tipped turkey. A lot of blacker flies use just slips, so this would be considered a slip. Instead of like a married wing or a mixed wing, it's just got these many blacker flies have these on there. The wings are comprised of the slips instead of almost like they're having a bad hair day. They look disorganized, but in reality they really are not. I'll cut these off as well. Get them out of the way. After the white-tipped turkey is golden pheasant, but I'm actually going to sub in some am gold instead of the golden pheasant. I really enjoy the look of am gold. And it's just a couple of small. It's just a small slip of it anyhow. And those of you that are kind of new to this, that are still kind of learning species and whatnot, Amgold is a hybrid cross between a golden pheasant and an Amherst pheasant. No, that's not good. Backside's good, front side's not. That's better. Okay, then next is golden pheasant tippet. But in this case, to do strips of it, to get tippet to stay in strips is actually rather difficult. And this crust is still trying to peek through here. Alright, so to get tippet to work on here properly and make and look good, I'm going to take a little bit of a play out of Ryan Houston's channel. It was a great idea. It works really, really well. So you take a larger tippet and you cut a section out of the middle right here at the stem, creating a V. And then you'll strip down everything up to however many you want to have on there. And then you'll strip these all away, leaving you with this. feel like that one's a hair long. That's all right. So next we'll tie that in. And one for the other side. Oh, I forgot one more before this. The recipe calls for it to be female Himalayan pheasant tail. I don't have any of that, so I'm just going to use some cinnamon turkey. Which is here. It's kind of, I get it's not really close to Himalayan, but it'll still add some color. Same thing, only 4 or 5 pieces. Now we can add our golden pheasant. And where's the other one? Those tippets are a little on the long side, but I do like them that way. They'll show better. The hackle on this is rather long. Alright, so after that, the next step is the topping, which typically is an Amherst pheasant, but Amherst pheasant crest, I had one here. Amherst pheasant crest doesn't usually get very long. Show you an example quick. This is your typical Amherst pheasant crest, and as you can see, it pretty much covers that wood duck, but that'll be about it. I really want it to come out and protrude out the back and kind of line up with the other ones. So because I'm doing one so long, I've chosen to use a golden pheasant crest that's dyed red. Now is when I want to get one that's somewhat close to the length of this last. This is a nice long one, but let's see. Okay, so I think I've got a good topping that's nice red topping, splayed out real nice, and meets with the rest. Take that, tie that one in. Beautiful. This one topping seems to want to twist. So that may have to get steamed or soaked, or so I can get this other one to fit in. That was not quite long enough to reach where I want it to. So I can straighten this out quick. However, I don't know if this is going to cut it. I think too short is too short. And if you look, the rest of this is starting to. Okay. Nope, still not long enough. That's very close to what I want. Thank you guys for being patient and following along with this. Such a beautiful fly, beautiful colors. I'm sure the fishing version, which is smaller, is probably a little easier to tie and goes a little bit quicker, but those all separated. Beautiful. Okay. Next is the horns, which is scarlet macaw. So let's just say scarlet macaw tail feather. So we'll just take a couple of pieces of that. Pretty much just like you do with other flies and other horns. Okay. Next, and then lastly, we've got the scarlet throat, or it's kind of like a collar hackle, which again is also schlappen from Feathers MC. And it shows in some pretty long fibered feather. I'd like to try to get a good bit of it on there. So to prepare for that, first I'm going to pinch everything and then try to just trim away all this excess a little at a time. Okay, with most of this trimmed up and out of the way, let's get some wax, and we're just going to make a spot to wrap our hackle. Next we'll tie in the hackle. And I'm folding that fold back that tip just so that way it locks it into place. That'll prevent from pulling it free when you go to wrap it. And then wrapping it, we'll just palmer it back just like we do with other hackles. Start as close as you can to the topping. And then just begin wrapping. Oh, I really almost forgot one very important part. I almost forgot the cheeks. So let's get these horns off here. The cheeks are kingfisher. I'm using the feathers from by the rump. They're a little larger, so they'll suit this fly a bit better. I've already selected those out as well. That blue really stands out nicely against the rest of the fly. Okay, back to the horns. Okay. Now we can go back to wrapping hackle. And we'll see if I can fold that little piece back again. Perfect. And now just palmer it. Palmer it back as we wrap. And then tie off right on that little piece of stripped hackle stem. And then I'm just going to build up a small spot to put my hurl head. And we can work out the rest of these feathers and reorganize everything in a minute. Now we'll grab the fibers from the ostrich hurl. Get a section of string or thread. And just as usual, we'll tie the thread in on the underside of the hook shank, right up against that hackle. tie in the ostrich roll. When you tie the ostrich roll in, tie it so that way it's facing, so the soft side is facing up. If you look at it closely, there's a very clear stem. You want to take that and keep that facing down, and then the fuzzy side facing up. A little bit of wax on there, and we'll go ahead and wrap our hurl head. Hopefully it doesn't slip too much. And it's slipping a little bit, so I am going to try to just build this up a little bit more. Okay, so plan B. I'm going to put a small amount of Sally Hansen's on the thread and build it up just enough and put some of this thread on there just enough, and when that starts to get tacky, then we'll wrap the hurl. Give that a minute. Now let's see what happens. That does not want to work for me. Okay, well. This is a first for me. Having such difficulty with the hurl head. So now I'm going to resort to really waxing my thread. I almost spilled my Sally Hansen's there. But don't do this either. Oh man. Alright, so we're going to start this process over with this wax that is on here. Alright, that ought to be better. That ought to be much better. Okay, so I've stripped my hurl again. Now let's have a try. That's better. Now, take my tweezers, get the hurl through that loop, and we'll pull on this loop here. And as we pull on it, there we go. So this part broke. Now, I think that's going to unravel. Yep. Funny, the hurl head's taking longer time than the rest of the parts of the fly. Let's try again. The hurl on there. Let's get the old piece out of there. My loop, and then we'll wrap the hurl. So like having good tacky wax helps tremendously. What I'm doing right now is actually just using my cauterizer to heat up the wax that's there and get it tacky enough to hopefully hold this in place.